Hey, internet friends, I'm Mike Schmitz, and I help busy people be more productive and creative. I host 3 different podcasts. I've created several screencast courses over at the Sweet Setup, but for a long time, I actually didn't think that I was creative. So in this video, I want to share with you the 5 books that literally changed my creative life. And they showed me that yes, even I have what it takes to be creative. So before we get started, maybe you find yourself in a situation like I was. Maybe you don't think of yourself as creative. You don't have the capacity to create. And my advice to you would be not to write yourself off just yet, because you might be surprised at what you're actually capable of. So with that being said, let's get to the 5 books that I believe every creative should read. And the first one is this one, Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. This book taught me that everything is a remix and that nothing is completely original. In fact, when you are creating something that appears original, really what you're doing is you're just connecting some pre-existing dots in ways that haven't been connected before. And once I understood this, I realized that really creativity is just a formula. If you want a better output, all you need to do is change the input. It freed me from judging the result of my work. And what it allowed me to do was realize that to get better at creating, all I really needed to do was collect more and better dots. Now, this book has a really cool style. There are lots of visuals, original art, and diagrams, which makes this book a really easy read. I highly recommend this one. And if you're just getting started on your creative journey, then this book is a great place to start. Now, the second book I'd recommend is Liminal Thinking by Dave Gray. This is one that someone had recommended to me in my mastermind group, and I'd never heard of this book before. But it was interesting because it showed me the human tendency that we have to surround ourselves with people who think just like we do. It's this reinforcing echo chamber. So Dave Gray just calls this out. He calls it our bubble of belief. And he explains how that bubble of belief is actually built upon a foundation of what we consider to be obvious and true, but that's really only a small portion of what's actually knowable. So when we recognize that there is a whole lot more to reality than what we personally understand, it kind of opens our eyes and we tend to look for things that are different. We don't view them as a threat anymore. And it's a great book for gaining perspective. Now, the next book is Personal Socrates by Mark Champagne. This is my new favorite book. I must have gifted about 50 different copies of this book so far. And I love it because it's got a bunch of really short character profiles that contain just a couple different clarifying questions you can use to help make better sense of your situation. The back of this book has the phrase, "At any point, we are one question away from a different life." And I really like that idea. I'm a little skeptical nowadays of those standard productivity books that pretend to have all the answers. But I love the idea of gaining clarity by asking better questions. And this book arms you with a bunch of questions that will definitely give you a lot to think about. Now, the next book is The Great Mental Models, Volume 1 by Shane Parrish and Rihanna Baubin. This is a really beautiful book, and you may recognize Shane from his Farnham Street blog. I'd actually never read that before. When I came across this book, it was a recommendation from a Bookworm listener. This book is also really cool visually, gives you a ton of mental models to look at things through. And the whole goal of this book is actually to help you collect these models that you can use to make sense of your situation. An example of a mental model is Occam's razor. The simplest solution is the best solution. Okay, but the one that I really like in this book is the map is not the territory. Basically, that any representation of reality is by definition not the actual territory. So when you're looking at a map, you're looking at really a representation of something that reflects the opinion of what someone else has decided is important. So when you're trying to make sense of something, you're essentially assuming that role of the cartographer, and you get to choose what's important enough to appear on your mental map. It's a really powerful idea, and it's kind of foundational to all this personal knowledge management or PKM stuff that is really, really popular right now. And the last book here is The Extended Mind by Annie Murphy Paul. And this book is all about thinking outside your brain. It's fascinating to think about how we can use our physical bodies and even our environment to think about things better and make better intuitive decisions. And this book teaches you a lot of different methods for doing just that. Now, some of these you may have heard before, some may be obvious, like getting out in nature or going for a walk. But I love the idea of designing your environment to facilitate better thinking. I've gotten a lot out of this book. Obviously, that can help you be more creative. So there you have it, my 5 books that every creative person should read. These books have had a profound impact on me personally. And if you want to check any of these books out for yourself, there are links to all of the books that I've mentioned here below in the description. I've also covered a handful of these books for the Bookworm podcast that I do with Joe Bulig. So if you want to listen to a longer discussion of some of these books, I provided links to those episodes as well for the books that we've covered. And if you have any books that you think I should have included here, I would love to hear about them in the comments.